This week's shiurim in Sharia Talmud were on the inyan of chalifin. Chalifin is a type of a kinyan. And can a woman be acquired by this type of a kinyan? The Gemara says like this. The number in the ratio, what's it coming to lemiyute? We always know there's a rule. The rule is whenever you have a number written in the Mishnah, it's always coming as a miyut. For example, in this case, it says, a woman is acquired in 3 ways, and then it lists them. Kesef shtar biyah, through money, through a document, or through biyah, by living with her. So, why does it say the number 3? I know how to count. So the number 3 is always coming as a miyut. Also in the Sefer that says that a woman is acquires herself in 2 ways, through a gather, through misas abal. The Gemara comes and answers that the miyut in the Reisha, which is the 3, is coming limute chuppah. In other words, you cannot acquire a woman through chuppah. You can't just bring her to the chuppah and that's the way you acquire her. You have to use one of the 3 things in the Mishnah. So, comes along, and what do we do according to Rav Huna? According to Rav Huna, you can acquire a woman through chuppah. So if that's true, why is it outside of the Mishnah? The answer is, it's coming to Mamayit Chalipin. If you want to give a woman a handkerchief, for example, you hand it to her, then she picks it up, and then she gives it back to you. That type of acquisition is not going to work by a woman. Why not? Chalipin. What was the Havamina that actually should work, that the Mishnah has to come and tell you that it doesn't work? I'll tell you why. Because the Gemara brings the Havamina. It says, Sakadak in the Mina. You would have thought, since it says, Kika, you shall take a field, and it says, you shall take a woman in the acquisition of the field by Avram Avinu when he bought Stei Ephron, and it says, take there, and also says, by taking a man shall take a woman, so then you would have thought that it could also be Kalipin. Why? Because there's a Gezer Sheva. The same words are used in the kinyan by the field as the kinyan by a woman, by the kinyan kesef by a woman. We would extend that to think that potentially maybe you can learn other types of kinyans that were used by a field can also be used by a woman. Also, a woman is acquired by a khalifa. Kamash Malan comes along the Mishnah and the number 3 to tell you no. So continues the Gemara and says, wait a second, ain't hachinami? Let's learn it. Sounds good to me. Why don't we say kika kika? That's a great place to learn that a woman can also be acquired by chalipin. The answer is no, because chalipin can be done in less than a sheva pruta. The actual object that you hand over to the other person and do that type of a kinyan, for example, let's say you wanted to corner a field, so you can take a handkerchief, you can hand it over to the other guy. Who hands it over? Pesach, I believe the halacha really is, it's the person who's selling the field, that he hands over the handkerchief to the guy buying the field. It's like he hands over the handkerchief as a representation for the field, and then the other guy picks it up. So let that work. Let that work. It should work by a woman. Why not? So since that handkerchief can actually be worth less than a sheva pruta, it can be worth less than the minimum amount, the smallest coin. So therefore, it's not going to work by a woman. Why not? Lo makne na. She's going to hand herself over. What does Rashi say on that? He says to Genaihu, it's not nice. It's not nice for a woman to get acquired, that should be the marriage ceremony, that it should be on something that's less than a sheva pruta. Hilchak batul toras chalipin. Therefore, Rashi says we batul toras chalipin, but Kiddushin, it doesn't work at all. Afilu b'kli sheyesh bo sheva pruta. Even a kli that if you give her a gold, who knows what, so it's still not going to work, because we batul toras chalipin. Now Rashi says that the reasoning, the logic behind why it doesn't work is because there's a ganai to the woman. And he has the girsa, which fits with what he said, which is lo makne nafshe, which sounds like she doesn't allow herself to be acquired. It's talking about her. Tosfos and the Rishonim come along with a bunch of kashas on this. The first kasha that Tosfos brings is if there's a reason behind this whole thing, is because the woman does not give herself over for such a small amount of money, that the woman will not allow for such a thing. So if that's true, what about if you had a woman who would allow for such a thing? What if the woman doesn't care? She really wants to get married to this guy. I don't care what type of kinyan we're using. What's the difference what type of kinyan we make? What type of acquisition? Let her use a handkerchief that's worth less than a sheva prut and let it work. That's Tosfos' first kasha. And that can't be. Why? Because the Mishnah says shalosh. Shalosh in the Mishnah is coming to limiyute chalipa. It has to be out in all cases. It can't be dependent on the woman's das. The second kasha that Tosfos has is from the daughters of Rabbi Yanai. It said they wouldn't even take less than 3 basketfuls of dinarim. So if that's true, they should have asked the kasha which they asked on Beis Shammai over there. These women, these daughters of Beis Yanai, they were very rich girls, and they won't take less than 3 baskets, so even a dinner won't work. They asked the kasha over there on Yud Aleph, so they should have asked it right here, if that's the subject that we're talking about over here in our Gemara. The third kasha that Tosfos has is on chazaka. If you're going to learn that the limud, how the Gemara seems to be saying that we're learning kika mustayafra to teach us chalipin. If that's true, we're learning a woman from a field. I mean, that's what it says. It says we learn from the stayafron. But if you want to extend that beyond kesef, the way the Gemara seems to be doing, so if that's true, well, why don't you also say that a woman can be acquired by a chazaka? In other words, by a field. If you're on the field for 3 years, you acquire the field. If nobody made a machav, nobody said anything. So also, let the woman live in your house for 3 years or for 3 days, whatever you'll say, how you do a chazaka on a woman, but let it work. That's the third kasha. The fourth kasha is, later on in the Gemara on Daf Hey Amud Aleph, it seems to be saying the V'shtar Manailan. Where do you know that a document works by a woman? Why does the Gemara have to ask such a question? According to this logic, that we're learning chalipin from kika of stayafron from kesef, and by soda, so then we can learn everything from the soda. We don't have to come onto a new limud for star. We can learn everything. The question will be, why are those last 2 kashas on Rashi specifically? They seem to be kashas on the Gemara. So simply speaking, it must be like this. And since Rashi said the factor was a ganai. The reason why it doesn't work is because of a ganai. So you see the kasha really according to Rashi, because Rashi seems to be saying that really in theory we could learn all the other cases, all these other kinyanim from Soda. Any kinyan that would be shaykh by a field will be shaykh by a woman. And it's really ganai that's just the factor. Therefore the second 2 kashas are really on Rashi. Tosfos has to come along and answer the 4 kashas. So Tosfos says like this. He says, Lo makne. He takes it the word nafshe. He says like this. It says, why doesn't pruta? Really we wanted to learn from kesef. It says kika b'stayafron. And we wanted to say, well, if that's true, let chalipin work, because chalipin's within kesef. And no. The answer is, according to Shittas Tosfos, it's in kesef. But it still doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because a woman is not going to mock them, because lesser the sheva pruta will not work. Where do we know that from? We know from kika kesef. Kesef will not work for a woman unless it's sheva pruta. That's what the Pesukim are telling us. If that's true, that answers all 4 kashas. First of all, it answers the first kasha. If you say if a woman wants more than a sheva pruta, so it's not going to help because it doesn't work with klal. Chalipa doesn't work by a woman. Not because the woman is not happy about it, because chalipa doesn't work by a woman, because it's less than a sheva pruta, so it doesn't work by a woman. The other 2 kashas are also, we never had to have a minute to learn masoda, we never had to have a minute to connect a soda to a woman, a field to a woman, and therefore all the other kinyanim that are shaykh by a woman, by a field, and therefore all the other kinyanim that are shaykh by a field, they're also going to work with a woman. We never had to have them like that. We just wanted to learn kika, and we had a possibility that maybe that chalipa wouldn't work. Comes along the Gemara and tells you, no, it won't work, because it's less than a sheva pruta. You can't say you learn chazaka, you can't say you learn shtar, because we never made the connection between one and one field. We just wanted to learn one type of kinyan, which is chalipin. According to Tosfos, you can still hold that chalipin is a din kesef. It just learned from the Pesukim that it will not work for a woman. The Rashba wants to come and answer up for Rashi. Hey, we can't leave Rashi in the dust, so Rashba's going to come along and answer for Rashi. According to Rashi, you'll say like this. In the Havamina, it was a din kesef. In the Maskana, it's not a din kesef anymore. So even if the woman sticks out her hand, it's not going to work. Why? How do we know it's not a din kesef? Because we see that it works less than sheva pruta. It must be it's not a din kesef. So even if she sticks her hand out and says yes, it's still not going to work. How does the answer to the 2 kashas? Because just because I said it was a ganai, that doesn't mean that the other kinyanim are still shaykh. The other kinyanim were never shaykh. I was really learning kesef v'kesef. The fact that I said it was a ganai, that proved to me that it was not a din kesef anymore. But I never said I still have the din of a soda, the connection between an isha and a field, and therefore I can learn the other kinyanim. And that's how the Rashba answers for Rashi.